Welcome back everybody, Mike here from Tactical Considerations, and today we're going to be talking about the new Polymer trigger kit from Apex Tactical. Now this is not just the trigger shoe, this is a full trigger kit coming in at a much cheaper price than the original version that was in aluminum. This version will give you all of the same performance and feel and safety that Apex is known for, with tons of color options. Again, just at a much cheaper price point. So before we get into this thing, we're gonna pay the bills real quick here with the help of Hidden Hybrid Holsters. Now, if you don't know who Hidden Hybrid Holsters is, they make that sweet suede backed Amish leather holster with a Kydex front, blending that comfort with good retention that you can wear throughout the day in comfort. They've got a ton of options for you, everything for your 1911s all the way to the newest striker fired models out there. They've got belts, mag carriers, all kinds of different stuff. They even have a Tabasco holster if you need to keep that hot sauce quick close by your side for that quick fast food run. Go give them some love at hiddenhybridholsters.com. All right, let's move right into the range, performance, and the feel of this trigger. So if you don't know who Apex Tactical is, they were one of the first companies out there making a lot of different triggers for all kinds of different stuff, from wheel guns and of course Glocks and our striker fired pistols out there. It gives you a far better feeling trigger on that tactile feel with your finger because that blade safety in the trigger shoe goes all the way flush, and it's gonna reduce the take up, reduce the break weight by about a pound, and it's just overall gonna feel a ton better, especially when you get the full kit, because as we'll look at in a minute, you get other stuff with it, just not the trigger and the trigger bar.
Ooh, super flinch. Oh shit. Look at that. I just walked a pin on my old Glock.
Oh boy.
That's the original Glock pin. You can see how it's almost polished. It's been in and out so many times. I walked it.
Damn.
Finally walked that pin. Let's just push her on back a little bit. Right there. That's how you fix it. Right there. Push her on back a little bit.
Now the break on these triggers is far better than a factory Glock, and that entire pull through that break and that reset is far smoother and a little bit more crisp feeling than a factory trigger, just because of how they've redesigned the angles in that trigger shoe and the striker block safety, and of course the connector that does come in this kit. Overall, like I said, you're gonna drop about a pound off of that weight, but it's gonna feel far better throughout that break, pull, reset, all that good stuff, which is probably what you're looking for if you're trying to go to an aftermarket trigger. Now, depending on your training and experience, the design of this kit being a flat face trigger, a little bit better feeling, a little bit shorter on the take up and action here, you're probably gonna be able to run this maybe a little bit faster and maybe a little bit more accurate, because generally the trigger pull is where people start yanking shots to the left and right, maybe a little bit of that expectation of recoil. So having a very nice, smooth, and repeatable trigger where you know where that wall and you know where that break is and you know where that reset is, that can speed you up, and that can also add a little bit of accuracy depending on your training. From my experience, all of the Apex triggers I have run absolutely awesome out there, and all of the safeties are 100% intact. So Apex has some of the best testing in the business. I think at one point they were actually dropping pistols off of their roof of the commercial building. I wanna say it's like 25 or 30 feet tall, to the point where they were breaking the frames in their testing. So that's a lot, and they do it from like, I think 25 or 20 different angles to ensure that every single portion of the safety in this pistol is still being met and retained. And it's also approved by different law enforcement entities and government entities for use, which says a lot about not only the quality, but the safety of the product, because that is a big liability, putting an aftermarket trigger in a pistol, especially when it's a government entity that has deep pockets and probably gets sued regularly. Let's take a good up close look at everything that comes with this trigger so you can get an idea of what the difference is in the parts and why this trigger feels so much better than a factory Glock trigger. And then of course, we're gonna talk about that cost difference between the original aluminum version and the polymer version, which gives you all of the same performance at a drastically reduced price. All right, let's take a good up close and personal look at this new poly version of the Apex trigger right here. So I know somebody's gonna ask about these because they are absolutely slick looking. These are the Factor USA +5 extensions. Super easy to install. These are some of my favorites. Awesome people over there. I love these guys. You got a code for those, TC10 or something, but it'll all be at the build list if you want to check those out. So there is that new trigger shoe from Apex right there. You can see it has those classic Apex lines to it. Very nice. Trigger shoe safety does go all the way flush, and we'll talk more about that when we look at one that's not installed so you can get a better look. But this is a very, very nice feeling and looking trigger. So you can see trigger shoe safety, very nice engagement, goes all the way flush. There's your wall, there's your brake. So because this is a full kit, it's gonna react a little bit better. So there's our reset and the brake. So I'll go a little slower this time. See on that pull, so there's the wall, and you can see there's almost zero creep in this, and that's very difficult, okay, to achieve for a Glock trigger system. So let's take a look at the parts we're gonna get here. I'll go ahead and break this down actually. So we can look at these, but since I have some of it out, I wanna show you. One of the big things here that we're gonna get is that striker block safety. So you can see how finely polished it is and how well rounded off it is. That makes a huge difference in how that trigger feels, both in the grit and that overall pull. So if we take a good look at the factory version right here, you can see it's nothing but hard edges. And the reason it feels so nasty is because that edge right there is what the vertical extension of the trigger bar is interfacing with. So it's got to overcome all of those edges right there. So flat edge, flat edge, right? So that's what makes it feel kind of bad. Also, this is a factory connector because with this kit, we get the apex connector down in there. You can see the top of it right there. This is going to determine a little bit of the pull weight and how it feels. So it's a little bit more of a rolling brake. It is a little bit more of a crisp brake, and that has to do with the angles of this as it sits in there, and also the height of it can make a difference as well. So that is the Apex trigger bar. That is not a factory Glock one because Apex is now making their own because they didn't want to be at the whim of Glock cutting off the market again. It's modeled after a Gen 3 trigger bar because Gen 3 seems to be the manufacturer's choice when you're making aftermarket triggers because they say that bar was the best bar that Glock ever made. And then of course, that connector right there that you can see the neck of popping up right there, that's the Apex version that is in there. So let's take a good up close look at the shoe. Okay, you will see right up there, it's gonna say the model that it's meant for, so Gen 3, Gen 4. Again, that trigger shoe blade safety goes all the way flush. It's so much easier to show this when they're not installed. Let me move my finger out of there so it doesn't get caught again. But you can see right there, all the way flush. You do get a little bit of a hook down there. That way when your finger's on that trigger, you're not gonna bypass it and get on the frame. So that's kind of nice that that is there. And it's got that standard design. Now, Apex specifically designed this shoe this way to match the look of the Glock. They weren't trying to go for like a Gucci look. They wanted it to match the stock style look. So it will come, that pin will be sticking out right there. So when you install it, it's very, very easy. And you'll know the difference on the polymer and the aluminum ones because you'll see those small circles. And those are from the injection molding process. And then obviously, as you can tell, since you've already seen the blue one, they're gonna have the red like is in mine. And then they've got purple, flat dark earth, black, and I think they might have maybe one or two more colors. But take those and then kind of, you know, compare that to the factory trigger right here, which is just, you know, standard Glock looking, but the trigger, the safety right here doesn't go flush, and that part right there is what digs into people's hands and they kind of hate it. And it just overall doesn't feel great. It functions awesome, not the best feeling trigger. So all of that stuff in combination is what gives the trigger the feel that it has. So let's go ahead, put it on the pull gauge here, and thank you again to the viewer that sent this in. That was awesome of you. They got tired of staring at my mechanical gauge, so they sent this in. We'll do 3 pulls as we always do here, and then we will get the average. So it's a little hard to get in here sometimes. All right, so 5 pounds and 12 ounces on that first one. A little bit higher than I was getting, but I think it was pretty high up on the trigger shoe. So if you get a little bit lower right here, kind of where that hook is, there's the difference. So 3 pounds, 13 and a half, I guess you could say right there. So we'll do the last one and we'll kind of go right for the middle here. If I can work this down in there. So not at the bottom, but a little bit higher up. Okay, so that one went low. We're gonna do a 4th one. So I think that might have been my gauge playing with me. So we'll do 4 and average it because 2 pounds is pretty light. All right, so 3.9 on that one. I think we are good to go. We'll enter that. So our overall out of the 4 is gonna be 3 pounds, 13 ounces. Keep in mind, this thing has tons and tons and tons of rounds through it because this was a police trade-in, and you can see the pins are actually like polished. They've been pulled in and out so many times. Ton of rounds here, so that's maybe why it's a little bit lighter than it should be. But overall, you're gonna see probably 4.5, 5 pounds on most of the Apex trigger kits. So this one's a little bit lighter, just so you know. Well, let's go ahead and talk about that cost. All right, now you've seen it up close, you know what it comes with, you saw those trigger pulls. Let's talk about the price here. So the standard Apex aluminum kit is like $140. I checked the site before filming the video, and even that as a full kit is still a pretty aggressive price because some triggers and trigger bars alone are like 140 bucks. So the fact that you're getting the striker block safety and the connector and the trigger bar for 140 bucks is a good deal. But these ones, the polymer version in whichever color you choose in that full kit, is coming in at 90 bucks, cash money American, right now as of filming this video. And again, that's a pretty solid price because if you don't know, Glock for the most part cut off the aftermarket from all of their small parts like trigger bars. So that's why you've seen a lot of Glock triggers from every different manufacturer not in stock. Apex took it on their own. They started making their own Gen 3, 4, and I think they're actually making Gen 5 and slimline triggers now, but they're making their own bar completely because they did not want to have to rely on Glock anymore because we don't know when all of those parts are going to open back up for people to buy in mass and begin using for trigger kits again. All right, so knowing all of that, what are our positives here? And I would say pretty much everything except for the fact that you have to like pay for it. You don't get it for free. It just gives you everything the Glock trigger doesn't. Now, I know there are more aggressive ones out there. There are ones that are far lighter, there are ones that are far shorter. But again, this is still considered a duty safe trigger. So it is that happy medium between where you can get the most performance and still have ultimate reliability, function, and safety. Hence why it is, again, approved by government entities for use. And I'm just a huge fan of Apex products. I have a bunch of their triggers and small parts and everything from FNs, CZs, SIGs, and of course the Glocks. They make a great product, a safe product, and they try to bring it in at the best possible price they can because they want people to obviously enjoy cleaner, better triggers than you get a lot of time in a factory pistol. Well, that is what I have for you all today. Make sure you guys get subbed up and double check to make sure you are still subscribed because I had a bunch of people tell me they were unsubscribed recently. That seems to happen every few months around here. So leave me a comment down below on if you're thinking about an Apex trigger or another one for your Glock or something else, because I'm really curious to know what everybody else is interested in, because if it's something new and I haven't heard of it, I might be interested in it too. You get out there and have some fun on the range. Remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. I will see you all on the next one.